أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين في الأنبياء والمرسلين خاتم النبيين أبي القاسم محمد وأهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين الذين أذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا أما بعد فقد قال الله تبارك وتعالى وقوله الحق وهو أصدق القائلين بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم لقد من الله على المؤمنين إذ بعث فيهم رسول من أنفسهم يتلو عليهم آياته ويزكيهم ويعلمهم الكتاب والحكمة وإن كانوا من قبل لفي ضلال مبين صلوات على محمد وآل محمد اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. Respected brothers and sisters in Iman, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. I will request brother to hand me some batteries from here because the battery is about to die. I should have replaced it before getting up onto the mimbar. But once again, greetings and felicitations on this very auspicious occasion in which we are celebrating the Eid, which is called al-Mab'ath. And it is one of the important ayat that are mentioned. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali. Hopefully you can hear me again. Where we're celebrating this Eid al-Mab'ath, and it is one of the four most important days which are mentioned as far as the fasting is concerned. If you remember last time, we were having a program on one of those occasions which is amongst these four. One of them is the 25th of Dhul-Qa'dah, which is Dahw al-Ard. One of them is tonight, which is 27th, the night of 27th, and inshallah tomorrow being the day of 27th, which is recommended for fasting. Third is the birth of the Holy Prophet, which is 17th of Rabiul Awwal. And fourth is the 18th of Dhul-Hijjah, which marks the announcement of the vilayat of Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salatu wassalam. And if you connect these dots, and as we had mentioned, as to what is the relationship between these 4 days which are mentioned for the Eid, or which are mentioned as the most important days outside of Ramadan for fasting purposes. We connected the dots in the following way, and this is just a reminder, that one of them is on the day when the Holy Prophet was born, which is the 17th of Rabiul Awwal. In fact, let's go before that. First day is the day when the earth was born, because the earth emerged from beneath the water for the first time on 25th of Dhul-Qa'dah, and that's called Dahw al-Ard. And the land which is in Mecca is the first land which emerged from beneath the water, as is mentioned in riwayat of Ma'sumin. So that's the first day when humans could look for a place where they can settle down. But obviously humans came many millions of years afterwards. Second is the day when the wiladat of the Holy Prophet takes place, for whom this entire universe and as well as this world is created. Third marks the day when the mission of the Holy Prophet began, which is 27th of Rajab. And fourth marks the day which is the day of Ghadir, which is the completion of this religion. So from this aspect you can understand how these 4 days are connected. The night of Mab'ath or Bi'that. The word Bi'that or Ba'atha, as this ayat which I recited for you from Surah Al-Imran, ayat number 164, in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, لَقَدْ مَنَّ اللَّهُ عَلَى الْمُؤْمِنِينَ. Indeed, Allah favored the faithful when he raised amongst them an apostle. لَقَدْ مَنَّ اللَّهُ عَلَى الْمُؤْمِنِينَ إِذْ بَعَثَ فِيهِمْ. Ba'atha is the word which means to raise. From this we derive the word Mab'ath, and we derive the word Mab'uth. Mab'uth bi-risalat. Now a lot of people confuse and get confused that this is the day when the Holy Prophet became the Nabi, or this is the way when a Holy Prophet became, assumed the importance of Nubuwwat and Risalat. No, Rasulullah was Nabi, as he said in the Hadith, Kuntu Nabiyan wa Adamu bain at-tin wal ma, that I was a Nabi when Adam was not even created. So this is not the day when the Holy Prophet is becoming a Nabi. He's been a Nabi, even before the creation of any human beings. But today is the day when he's assuming the responsibilities of divine mission, when he's beginning openly propagating the religion of Islam. In the words of Shaheed Mutahari, he says, today is not just the day when the Holy Prophet was Mab'uth bi-risalat. That means he was raised for risalat. Today is the day that all of us are being raised. Today is the day when the darkness was put out by nur and light. So this is where we understand the concept of Mab'ath. Bi'ithat of the Holy Prophet marks that particular day when the Holy Prophet was raised by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for this important mission, the mission of Risalat. And so the Holy Prophet, the story goes as is. And you've heard this story many times, so I'm not going to dwell too much into this story. I'll just quickly, for the sake of reminding the children and the younger ones as to what is the background of this Bessat. The background of the Bessat is as follows. That the Holy Prophet for 40 years, he lived amongst the Quraysh in Mecca, and he was living a life of any Nabi would live a life. He was living a life where he was known as Amin, trustworthy, and Sadiq, which means righteous. So he was known amongst the kuffar as Amin and Sadiq. And this Amanat-Dari, the trustworthiness of the Holy Prophet, and the Sadaqat of the Holy Prophet is prior to him announcing the religion of Islam. So what does that tell you? That tells you that you don't have to be a Muslim to be Amin and Sadiq. Now, the Holy Prophet is the follower of Deen Hanif. Is the follower of Deen which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created from the very first day. But in order for us, now the Holy Prophet is living amongst the people without announcing that he's the Nabi, that he's, as Hazrat Ibrahim and Hazrat Ismail said, "Oh Allah, make us to be Muslimain lak," those who are submissive to you. He did not announce any of those things. And therefore he's propagating. And Rasulullah practiced this amanat-dari and this righteousness, this sadaqat. So it doesn't have to be that you have to show through your actions that you're a Muslim. This is where you have to apply this. While you should be righteous and you should be trustworthy with everyone for that matter, and not just for selected individuals. So that's one lesson that you can derive, that Rasulullah did not have to announce that I'm a Muslim and I'm bringing this religion and I'm the Nabi and I'm the Rasul and that's the reason I'm Amin and I'm Sadiq. No. That amanat-dari and that sadaqat is built in your khilqat, in your creation. And hence it should display itself. And then when he spent the 40 years, when he used to meditate in the cave of Hira, one day Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sends Jibreel alayhi salatu wassalam with the first revelation from him. And the first revelation, all of you know, chapter number 96, Surah Alaq, the first 5 ayat of that chapter were revealed. Hazrat Jibreel comes and he says to the Holy Prophet, read in the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Iqra bismi rabbika alladhi khalaq. Read in the name of your Lord who created you. Rasulullah said, what should I read? But some riwayat from our brothers of Ahl Sunnah, they say, well, Rasulullah did not know how to read and write. He was ummi, that means he was, na'udhu billah, illiterate. No. someone who's sent for the guidance of entire humanity, how can that person be illiterate? Yes, he did not attend any worldly institutions, but he had all the knowledge in the world. He had ilm ladunni. He had brought that ilm from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the Holy Prophet is merely asking the question, what should I read? He says, read. When someone tells you, read, naturally you're going to question, what do you want me to read? Unless I don't know how to read, then I'll say, well, I don't know how to read. So therefore, this question from you is baseless. Therefore, we're questioning who? We're questioning the Holy Prophet being illiterate, na'udhu billah. And we're also questioning Hazrat Jibreel, who doesn't have the knowledge that the Holy Prophet is illiterate. Don't ask him a question. For example, I go up to, if, 3-year-old kid, a 2-year-old kid who probably still does not know how to read yet. Some 2 or 3-year-old may be able to read, but generally speaking, I go up to a 2-year-old, 3-year-old as a read. People will not question the 2 and the 3-year-old. That why can't you read? They'll question me, why are you even asking a 2 or 3-year-old to read? Do you not know this 2 or 3-year-old cannot read? Let me give you a better example. I do not know how to fly a plane. Let's say we enter an airplane. Not in these days, in these nights, you should avoid travel due to the conditions that we are going through. But let's say we all entered a plane, we were going on a trip to a ziyarat, inshallah. Once all of these issues are gone, hopefully we'll be able to go back to the ziyarat of Ma'asumeen once again. And we boarded the plane together. And I'm with you, Mr. Maulana is accompanying us. The pilot says, I'm not feeling well. Can one of you come up and start flying this plane? He said, Maulana, you should go ahead and fly the plane. I said, no. The pilot will not come and ask this question, because this is something which is putting everyone in harm's way. You would not put a child behind the wheel who does not know how to drive. The Holy Prophet then, how is it that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with His hikmat and His wisdom is asking, na'udhu billah, someone who does not know how to read to go ahead and read? That itself is a false argument right there. So the Holy Prophet said, what should I read? Not how should I read, what should I read? Asking the question what from how is very different. So Jibreel alayhi salatu wasalam was ordered to deliver these ayat. He said, Iqra bismi rabbika alladhi khalaq. خلق الإنسان من علق اقرأ وربك الأكرم الذي علم بالقلم علم الإنسان ما لم يعلم. Read in the name of your Lord. Read the one who created you. Read the one who taught you with pen. Read the one who taught mankind who did not know anything. Interestingly, from the aspect of the revelation, this is the first surah. Or at least the first 5 ayat are the first revelation of Surah Alaq. You know what is the second surah which was revealed unto the Holy Prophet? It was Surah number 68, Surah Wal Qalam. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Noon wal qalami wa ma yasturun. Ma anta bi ni'mati rabbika bi majnoon. Wa inna laka la ajran ghayra mamnoon. Wa innaka la ala khuluqin azim. That the first surah which is revealed begins with read in the name of your Lord. Second surah that begins says write. And that, by noon, and that which you write, by the pen, and write whatever you write with this pen. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is also announcing the fact that my chosen prophet, who's beloved amongst all of the prophet, who's Mahbub Ilahi, who's the one who's Khatimul Anbiya, who's Sayyidul Mursaleen, is someone who also who knows how to read as well as who knows how to write. So from this aspect we understand these are the first 2 chapters of the Holy Quran which were revealed unto the Holy Prophet. Not just for the sake of, explaining that a Prophet knows how to read and Prophet knows how to write, but also for us Muslimin, that we should know how to read and we should also know how to write. So that you and I also attain knowledge and we seek knowledge. We learn different sciences. Today, the world is in need. They're in need of this solution, this plague, which is affecting thousands and thousands and millions hundreds and thousands of people around the globe, and millions of people around the globe for that matter. The population of the world, 7 or 8 billion, all of them are on their toes, feeling vulnerable, especially the areas which are heavily affected. And they're not too far away from us. Just a state across us, New York, is now leading, unfortunately, has more cases than many of the countries combined. So it is indeed alarming for us, and we should always abide with the instructions of law enforcement agencies. So I'll go through it very quickly, the ayat that I had recited, which begins that indeed Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala favored the faithful when He raised them amongst them, an apostle from them, to recite to them His signs, yatlu alayhim ayatihi. One of the objectives of the Holy Prophet is what? Yatlu alayhim ayatihi. Recite the ayat that are revealed unto them. When the Holy Prophet does not know how to read, why it is one of the duties of the Holy Prophet is to go ahead and recite the ayat that are revealed unto him. وَيُزَكِّيهِمْ, and then to go ahead and also purify the mankind, the humanity, because humanity is corrupted. وَيُعَلِّمُهُمُ الْكِتَابَ وَالْحِكْمَةِ, and also teach them the book, and also teach them the hikmat, which is the wisdom. إِن كَانُوا وَإِن كَانُوا مِن قَبْلُ لَفِي ضَلَالٍ مُبِينٍ. And earlier, they had indeed been in a manifest error. There's so much discussion in this one ayat that would take a lot of time, and I will remain from going into the main discussion that I wanted to carry out tonight. That 4 things are being mentioned. First, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala begins by what? Begins by, and I'm going to use this word, in a tone which I don't mean for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but so that my younger ones can understand. When you do a favor to someone, what are you told? You're told not to brag about it. Let's say you lend someone $1. I'm talking about kids. Someone said, can I borrow a couple of dollars from you? You said, go ahead. Let's say you get older, someone said, can I borrow $100 from you? And if you were capable of giving, you go ahead and give that $100. Older, someone gets, they're looking to buy a car or something. They say, can I borrow, $1,000 from you? Or thousands of dollars from you? As the price goes higher and higher, you start feeling that you have helped that person. You feel good inside while helping. Remember yesterday or the day before when we were having this majlis on the shahadat of our 7th Imam, one of the traditions that I quoted from 7th Imam was, أَوْنُكَ لِلضَّعِيفِ أَفْضَلُ الصَّدَقَةِ. You helping an elderly is the best form of sadaqah. And in these days that we are going through with this coronavirus, elderly are the most vulnerable, right? Now, all of us are, but elderly especially. So therefore, عَوْنُكَ لِلضَّعِيفِ أَفْضَلُ الصَّدَقَةِ. If you want to do some charity, charity doesn't always have to be with money. Charity could be, lending a hand to someone, helping someone out. In these days, if someone needs some essential things that they themselves cannot go out and buy, we go ahead and lend a hand to them. We go ahead and buy those things for them. Get them the groceries, get them their medications, that get them all of those things that they may not be able to do so by themselves because they are either vulnerable, they're elderly, and they may not have the same immunity that you and I do. So with that said, when you give someone something, you feel good inside. And then there's this nafs of yours which wants to brag about it, that I did something good. Now if you brag about it with yourself, that's fine, nothing wrong with that. But if you brag about it with the person whom you've done this good to, then that's something which is not good. Anyone will tell you that. You don't need a religion to come and tell you that. You tell your son, don't brag about this. You help someone out, don't brag about it. Children, this might be a habit in them. So bragging is not good. Boasting and bragging is never good. In fact, the ayat of Quran says, قَوْلٌ مَعْرُوفٌ وَصَدَقَةٌ قَوْلٌ مَعْرُوفٌ. Your good words are better than the sadaqah يَتْبَعُهَا أَذَى, which entails you reproaching. So if you give sadaqah and you're going to reproach and you're going to brag about it, it's better that you don't give anything and just keep to good words. And there are many such ayat in Quran that لا تبطلوا صدقاتكم بالمن والأذى. Do not cancel and void your good deeds with charities by constantly bragging about it. So I've made my point, right? Why is it that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, لَقَدْ مَنَّ اللَّهُ عَلَى الْمُؤْمِنِينَ, that indeed Allah, He's bragging over here, that I have done a favor on you. لَقَدْ, indeed, Allah has done a favor unto you. What kind of favor? This is one of the biggest favors of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So He deserves to go ahead and brag about it by saying, إِذْ بَعَثَ فِيهِمْ رَسُولًا مِّنْهُمْ, when He raised amongst you a prophet from yourself. So the Holy Prophet being raised by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is one of the biggest favors of Allah onto mankind and humanity in general and specifically to us Muslimin. And therefore it is worth bragging for. And therefore Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is bragging. There are four things that are mentioned here. يَتْلُو عَلَيْهِمْ آيَاتِهِ. One of the duties of the Holy Prophet is that he recites the ayat. You know, that's why it is very important that we make an effort to recite the ayat of Quran. Don't, and I'll get to towards the end of my discussion, I have a discussion for maybe 7 minutes to 10 minutes about dua at the end of this conversation. And I'll connect it with this. So first and foremost is yatlu alayhim ayat. We always start reading Quran and dua, especially when we are struggling. Like these days. You get a lot of information, your social media groups, they'll forward you, read this, read that, read this, read that. That's fine. Nothing wrong with that. Read anything, which is coming from Quran, read it. Any dua from the Ma'sumin, read it. Nothing there. It's not going to harm you. In fact, if someone says, if you don't read this, then God forbid something bad will happen. No. That I can guarantee. If you don't recite it, nothing bad will happen to you. But if you read, it is possible that you may ward off, some sort of calamity from you. A lot of time the question is, and we'll get to the question answer towards the end as well, that how is it? Is it important for us to, make the dua, or should we just follow the instructions of the health professionals and look for the solution? There are two aspects of our body. The physical aspect of our body and then the spiritual aspect of our body, right? Nobody can deny those two aspects. The way we take care of the physical aspect by feeding it right things, we must also take care of the spiritual aspect of our body, that we don't corrupt our soul. We don't eat anything which is questionable or haram to corrupt our physical body. Similarly, we don't see or read or, say anything from our tongues or put anything in our mind which may corrupt our souls. Now, both of them are equally important. In fact, soul would be more important. You don't want a corrupted soul. Even if the body is corrupted, for example, there are medications to go ahead and clarify it, clear it. So therefore, you got these two aspects of your body. You say, well, dua. A lot of these ulama and the scholars, they're saying, read this dua, read that dua. Although we believe in it. But is that, important that we read dua and we don't worry about, a lot of people were saying the masajid are closed, the imam bargas are closed. Now the shrines of Ma'sumin, Mashhad al-Muqaddas is closed. Our shrine of Imam Rada is closed. Bibi Ma'suma Qum, her shrine is closed. I don't know if in Iraq they have taken those measures yet, that the shrines of Imam Hussein, Abu Abdullah, shrine of Amir al-Mu'mineen in Najaf, and all the other shrines, I don't know if they're closed or not. He said, these are the places where you get the shifa, and now you're closing these doors down. True, these are the places that we find the shifa. But there are two aspects of the body that I mentioned. One is the physical aspect of it. One is the spiritual aspect of it. That's why you have doctors for the physical well-being. And then there are psychiatrists as well. And then there are those, like these scholars of, Ilm-Din, who will address the, nafsiyat of insan, the psychological aspect of human being. When a person is psychologically strong, it is going to be affecting their physical body as well. When you're mentally strong, you're physically also strong. But if you're mentally weak, it is possible that your physical body will also frail. A lot of times, I've given this example and it's redundant, that you see the more the elderly, the more the ibadat. They'll stand up all night performing ibadat. You ask, a teenager to go ahead and perform 12 rakat namaz. Tonight, inshallah, all of the teenagers will perform it. You'll see all the elderly in the family, 60, 70 above, they'll all be doing this 12 rakat namaz. Why? Do they have more energy than a teenager? No. It's the willpower that they have. The stronger mentality that they have, which enables them so they overlook the physical aspect of their body. So, moving quickly, that there are many ayat in Quran which refer towards the bi'sat of the Holy Prophet. One of the missions of the Holy Prophet was to yatlu alayhim ayatihi, recite the ayat of Quran to the people that he was raised to. Wa yuzakkihim, purify them. This purification of the soul is very, very important. Recitation of the ayat, the purification of the soul. Only when Rasulullah has purified them, يُعَلِّمُهُمُ الْكِتَابَ وَالْحِكْمَةِ. Now teach them the book. Now teach them the hikmah. Because up until the point they're not spiritually cleansed and purified, these ayat, this book and this wisdom and this hikmah will not have any effect on them. I'll try and bring it to a close that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on numerous occasions has used the words arsalnaka ya ayyuhan nabi inna arsalnaka shahidan wa mubashiran wa nadhira. O Prophet, indeed we have sent you as a witness, as a bearer of good news, and as a warner. Inna arsalnaka bil haqqi bashiran wa nadhira. And similarly, there are many such ayat in Quran which talk about the raising of the Holy Prophet. Now, there is another ayat of Quran which refers to that the Holy Prophet is not the father of any man amongst you, but he is the apostle of Allah and the seal of the Prophet, and Allah has knowledge of all things. Tonight, as we mentioned, it is the night of Bessat. It's Eid-e-Mab'ath. Tomorrow is the day of Bessat. As I mentioned earlier, those who weren't listening at that time, it is one of the 4 most important fasts that you can perform, which is tomorrow, 27th of Rajab. Luckily, you have Sunday in front of you. So as it is, many of you are working from home because of the conditions. And it is a Sunday, so you don't really have any excuse not to fast. Make sure that you utilize this opportunity, that you go ahead and fast tomorrow. Fasting also, leads to many cures from many illnesses. And while you're making this important fast for tomorrow, there are many amal that are mentioned. The amal that I had mentioned, 12 rakat namaz tonight. And the same 12 rakat namaz should be recited tomorrow as well. And making dua. Dua is very important. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not like a servant who performs his salat, who prostrates in front of him and does the sajda, but does not raise his hand in dua. He said this person thinks that he's arrogant, that he's too good for me, that he's putting his forehead in front of me, but he's not raising his hands to ask me any dua. So how to make dua tonight and tomorrow, especially tonight and tomorrow. While we're going through such a difficult time, how do we make the dua? Tonight, how do we make the dua? And tomorrow especially, how do we make this dua? This will be, inshallah, as I mentioned, a quick 5 to 7 minute discussion, if I can just have your undivided attention. Conditions for the acceptance of dua. You follow these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 steps very quickly in 5 minutes. Inshallah, these steps, and you will see how the du'as are answered. Number 1, we must have an ongoing connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in all circumstances. Remember the ayat that I recited the other night? The Shahadat Majlis of our 7th Imam. يُنْفِقُونَ الَّذِينَ يُنْفِقُونَ فِي السَّرَّاءِ وَالضَّرَّاءِ. Those who do infaq, spend in the way of Allah, in ease and in adversity. Not just when they are, alhamdulillah, doing good financially. Only then they go ahead and give. No. At ease and at adversity. Both times you are giving. Nobody's asking you to give the same amount. Yes, when you're at ease, you should give accordingly. And when you're going through adversity, you should give accordingly. But those who continue to give. Similarly, those who continue to remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, whether they're at ease or at adversity. If you're going through a good time in your life, nothing is bothering you, still remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Continue to ask Him. Say, I don't need to ask for anything. Alhamdulillah, I have everything. No, don't have that attitude. Remember Allah, thank Allah, and ask from Allah, regardless of the situation, whether you're going through ease or you're going through difficulty. Why? Prophet of Islam, he said he was commanded to force his nafs with utmost patience in making dua every morning and every evening to attract the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Quran condemns those who only resort to making dua in times of need. Now, where were you? In fact, some of the riwayat mention from our 6th Imam, Imam Jafar as-Sadiq ﷺ, that a person who only seeks God's attention in making dua at times of extreme need may not see the results of this dua. Oh, I'm making this dua, I'm in need right now and I'm not seeing any results. He said the angels respond to his supplication by saying what? We don't recognize this voice. Where was this voice all these years? How come we've never heard of this voice before? So make sure we have this ongoing connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, whether at ease or adversity. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said to Prophet Dawood, remember me during the days of ease and comfort. Look at the command. Remember me in the days of ease and comfort, so that I may respond to your du'as during the days of difficulty and adversity. So remember Allah in good days. He will remember you in bad days. This is a very simple formula. Number 2, that's number 1. Have an ongoing connection with Allah. Number 2, dua must be from the bottom of our hearts. A lot of time, our tongues are uttering the words, but our heart is not along with it. Heart has to get into making this dua. We must mean what we are asking for. All the particles of our body, of our wujud, all the organs of our wujud should ask that one thing, and our heart and tongue should be in complete harmony with our actions and behavior. So when you're making this dua, it's not just, okay, I'm just uttering these words, oh Allah, get rid of this coronavirus, but you don't really mean it from your heart. And your heart is not in line and is not in harmony with your utterance of the tongue. Therefore, make sure both are aligned. Number 3, trust in Allah and believe in the acceptance of our dua by Him. A lot of time we don't trust that Allah will make this thing come true. You have doubts about it, na'udhu billah. He said, no, don't doubt in the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. 6th Imam said, Allah doesn't respond to the dua which emerges from a heedless heart. Make sure your heart is not heedless. It's not a ghafil. Believers should have husn zan. You know what is husn zan? That Allah will respond to my du'as. Have husn zan. Don't have a good suspicion on Allah. Don't have a bad suspicion that Allah will not, may not respond. No, have good suspicion. Husn zan that Allah will respond to. In fact, the riwayah says, when you're making dua, have this in your mind that the answer to your dua is at the doorstep while you're making this dua. Have such a husn zan on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Number 4, dua along with action and planning. This is exactly what we're going through today. That while we're making dua for this virus, while dua has power in the world to do whatever, because it's salahul anbiya, it's the asliha and the weapon of anbiya. They utilize this dua. But at the same time, you also have to plan. You have to follow the instructions. If it is saying that you stay at home, if it is saying that you avoid contact, if it's saying it's isolating yourself, if it's saying don't shake hands, if it's saying all of these recommendations are being given to you, avoid places which are crowded, follow these instructions. Follow these instructions, because Prophet says, Ad-da'i bila amal karrami bila watr. Someone who makes dua without actions, without planning, without tadbir, is like a person who shoots an arrow without an arch. Now the arrow may go as to a distance, but if you had an arch with you, bow and arrow, right? You don't have the bow, you only have the arrow. How far is this arrow going? Or if you just had the bow, you didn't have the arrow, how good is one without the other? Not that good. So action is also important alongside with this dua of yours. Dua cannot replace your planning and your hard work in running your life. Rather, it complements it. So you go ahead and do something about it. Refrain from all of these places which are recommended to refrain from. Do all of the recommendations that are given by the health professionals. And then on top of that, make dua. That is a perfect formula that will complement one another. And lastly, but not least, dua must be made with tazarru, with some, with humbleness, with humility, with, weeping, with you crying, and also when you are heartbroken. Just hear me for this one line. Sixth Imam said, whenever you are heartbroken, make dua. Whenever you're heartbroken, make dua. Since heart isn't broken unless it has been purified and sincere. When someone is heartbroken, they can really, at that point, think clearly. And I'm not talking about relationships over here, that your relationship is, you're heartbroken because someone broke up with you. No. I'm talking about with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala when it comes to this dua. We are all heartbroken at the moment. When we see our brothers in faith, humanity at large, but our brothers in faith especially struggling, in Iran, in other Muslim countries, now Pakistan is also, you add that to the list, and other Muslim countries, and then humanity at large. When you see human beings are suffering and struggling, people are dying every single day because of this waba, because of this virus, because of this disease, you feel pain. What is that riwayah? Remember that all of the Muslims are like a body. If one part of the body is aching, the entire body feels the pain. Has it ever happened to you that you got some injury on your hand? When you get an injury on your hand, even if it's a small paper cut, the entire body knows about this paper cut of yours, right? How is it that when a Muslim is struggling on the other side of the globe, you and I are not heartbroken? Or when humanity is struggling, we're not heartbroken. Instead, when you're heartbroken and when you have this tazarru, make dua. Because when you are heartbroken, your heart is purified and there comes khulus. When a person is sitting in a ship and the ship is what? When the ship is sailing, everything is good. When the ship starts, for example, drowning, the dua that comes from the tongue is with sincerity. That now the person who's seeing that the ship is drowning, nothing's going to happen to it. That dua at that time, when he's heartbroken, is with sincerity. So make sure that you use this opportunity tonight and tomorrow to perform individual ibadat, but at the same time, make sure that you're able to make dua in general for everyone. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us the tawfiq and ability to fulfill the amal of this night and this important day in the history of Islam. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us the strength and courage to go through these difficult days and the days which are ahead of us. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us strength to fulfill our duties as human beings, to be able to help out those who are in need, while we continue to make dua for those who are struggling more than us. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to hasten the reappearance of our awaited Imam, and make us amongst the helpers and the soldiers of Imam. Wa akhiru da'wana an alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala. All right, inshallah, I'll spend a few minutes here towards the end responding to some of the questions that were sent to me earlier. And if there are any other questions, how do we know that? Do they know how to send the questions?
Yeah, we're going to go live on Instagram.
We're going to go live on Instagram? Okay. So you can. So I was just informed that we're going to go live on Masjid Ali's Instagram page as well. And while that's happening, you can post your questions on Instagram. And inshallah, those questions will be then texted to me. And then I'll be able to address. But beforehand, inshallah, I have a few questions right here in front of me. As they were raised earlier, I'll try and address those questions. And if there are any other questions, I'm more than happy to address them. One of the questions that I got is that, what can you speak on the issue of people hoarding supplies and panic buying from an Islamic perspective? Islam has a very clear response to that. Any type of hoarding of supplies and food items is against humanity. And a person who does such an act is an extreme selfish act, because you're depriving others of the same thing. Because everybody is in need. Everybody wants to utilize what is in their possession, or what they can gain access to. Now, this question could be looked at from various aspects. Sorry if my attention is lost, because I'm getting the messages while I'm speaking. That a lot of time we are, seeing that in this part of the world especially, people who went ahead and bought, these toilet papers. Now you go to any of these supermarkets, you go to any of the stores, you find that that aisle is completely empty. Or people who bought these hand sanitizers. In fact, there was a story, someone bought all of the hand sanitizers, some 18,000 bottles of it, and stocked them up in his house, and he was selling them at a higher price on Amazon. So humanity kicked in. That man was located, and of course, then he was forced to give those things, for free or at the regular price. It says people can answer questions on the YouTube channel. Channel is also enabled. Yes, so you can also ask the question on YouTube channel. And that is also a venue for you to ask this question. So made the point clear that yes, hoarding in Islam is not allowed, especially in times of epidemics. This is when people become vulnerable. They show their real face. We all could be part of it. We get panicked because we all have to care for what? Our loved ones, our children, for example, those who are depending on us. So I'm going to go out of my way to get them, and I'm going to forget about everyone else. No, this is absolutely selfish act, which is again condemned in Islam. Should we perform Salatul Ayat in response to this COVID-19? The question is in reference to Namaz-e-Ayat, which becomes wajib in times of any natural calamity, right? Natural disaster. So therefore, although we don't get scared and afraid of the, eclipses, but it is one of those occasions when you go ahead and perform Salatul Ayat, or from, any of the natural disasters that happen, whether it's an earthquake, whether it's flooding, whether it's, heavy rain, the lightning, any of these things, if you get scared of them, then Namaz-e-Ayat becomes obligatory upon you. But in this case, it's not an obligatory thing. But if you're fearful of it and you want to perform Namaz-e-Ayat individually, you can. There's nothing wrong with it. But it's not making it obligatory upon you to go ahead and perform Salatul Ayat in this pandemic. Um, Another question is, what is the best way of practicing social distancing with people who are offended, don't pay heed to it, without hurting their feeling? Is there a religious dimension on this obligation on them to practice social distancing? I think today, in this day and age that we're in, these days that we're going through, I don't think anyone will be feeling offended. In fact, people will be offended if you extended your hand out to them. So I don't think this question will be very difficult to address or to understand. In fact, if you don't extend hand these days, people should understand this. This is something which is a very basic guidelines by the local authorities, by the government agencies, by the CDC, that first and foremost, have social distancing. In fact, when you are close to someone, 6 feet away, that should be the minimal distance between you and another individual, because while you're speaking to someone, the particles, the droplets, that could be carried over, if a person sneezes or coughs. So social distancing from that aspect, when you're close to someone, you should practice that. As well as, in this, as I said, it is something which people will not get offended today because the pandemic that we are going through. But I think it will be a good opportunity for them to understand why, Muslims practice this social distancing even at, regular times when we're not going through such pandemics, when we're not going through any sort of epidemic, when different genders, they don't mingle with one another, and then they don't shake hands. This is something which I guess would be, easily comprehensible after all of this is over. Question number 5 I have here. If you have any questions, you can forward me, but I have a few. How are burial and funeral rites changed during this COVID-19 situation, should someone pass away? Now, it's unfortunate that, we all have to die, and kullu nafsin dha'iqatul maut. And because of this coronavirus, there are a lot of deaths are reported. I don't want to say alhamdulillah, there hasn't been any reports in our community, which is a good thing. That means our people are following the instructions of the government agencies, of CDC, to do all that they can do in order to avoid situations where they might get affected by it. It's a good thing. But God forbid if someone was to die in our community, what we will do, Masjid Ali has its policy about it, and inshallah we will announce that as well. But I will mention what the Marja Taqleed Ayatollah Sistani had recently responded to this question. When this question was raised to him, the office of Ayatollah Sistani responded in the following manner, that if it is, a fear that the deceased of coronavirus, a person who died because of this disease, that person giving the ghusl may catch this virus from the disease, then it's no longer an obligation for you to give the ghusl. Now, if you can't give the ghusl, then the alternative is to give the tayammum. And you say, well, there's really no difference. If I'm going to open the bag to give ghusl or give tayammum, I might as well give ghusl. So if opening of the body bag, which is usually delivered from the hospitals, is also going to cause harm to those who are usually ghusl committee, then Ayatollah Sistani says you don't have to give any ghusl or tayammum. You can just put the kafan on top of the body bag, perform Salatul Janaza, and bury the body as is. But there are different reports. Some, infectious disease doctors, they have mentioned that after 8 to 10 hours, if a person has died from coronavirus, this virus is no longer in their system. And plus, a disease is not going to cough and it's not going to sneeze. You're more in danger with a person who has this virus than a person who has died from it. So if you feel safe and you have the proper gear, which is protective, measures that you have taken, these gear to protect your nose, protect your mouth, protect your face, protect your body, protect your hands. All of that protective gear, if you have that, and with that you can go ahead and perform the ghusl or tayammum, then you should go ahead and do that, and you should go ahead and bury the body with all of the rituals. But there is an option, an alternative, which I mentioned earlier, in case if it's difficult. Can a male shave, alter his beard to achieve a snug, airtight fit to fit an N95 mask if this male is a healthcare professional? So this question is related to someone who works for healthcare. And of course, you and I are not in the harm's way. They are in the harm's way. They are dealing with patients, who are infected. So they have to wear this N95 mask, which all of us came to know that there's a mask which is called N95. And this mask is something, obviously, which is foolproof, that if you're wearing it, you will not breathe this virus in. So is it possible for them to have this proper, snug, where no air gets in and there's no loose ends? Because with the beard on your face, it is possible that this mask might have some loose ends, and you might catch. Of course, in worst come scenarios, you resort to the most extreme situations. There are many things that become halal for you. When you're dying of hunger and you don't have anything to eat except this, for example, haram food. So saving your life is superior to dying. Saving your life is superior, therefore you'll go ahead and eat that haram in this particular situation. So in the extreme scenarios, when a person has to achieve this and they're unable to do so, then for time being, it might be. But, I'm sure this could be achieved by not completely shaving your beard, maybe trimming it down to the minimum, which is the allowed restricted limit, and then still wearing this mask so that, you're pleasing both Allah as well as you're able to perform your duties. But if you're not and you're unsure because of this beard, it might hinder, then it will be allowed in that scenario only for those individuals who are healthcare professionals. Can we interpret this calamity as bala, punishment, adab from Allah in response to mankind's activities lately? There are many ayat in this regard. In fact, there's lectures upon this as well. Zahar al-fasad fil barri wal bahr, ayat of Quran mentions. And which the calamities that you see is mimma kasabat aydikum. It is all earned by your own hands. You are the one who have caused it. When it comes to these bala, I have many lectures on this. The word bala means to be tried. It means trial. And there's a tradition from the Holy Prophet in which he said, Innal bala'a lil-zalimi adabun. Bala means trial, tribulation. For zalim is to teach him a lesson. So if you and I were zalimeen on this earth, this bala is serving as a lesson for us. And I'm sure many people in the world act as, tyrant, unjust, and they practice injustice. For those zalimeen, this is definitely a lesson for them, and this is definitely a bala for them. Prophet said, "Walil mu'mineen imtihanun." But this bala for mu'mineen is what? It's a test, imtihan. It's not, a repercussion of their amal. In fact, you are created. لَقَدْ خَلَقْنَا الْإِنسَانَ فِي كَبَدٍ. We created mankind in difficulty. So you will go through pains and difficulties in your life. So just look at it from that aspect, that it is an imtihan. You and I are first-hand facing this. Entire globe is facing this. But many people have been facing such calamities, for a long, long time. We didn't even hear about it. Maybe because we live in a country, we live in a part of the world which is very advanced. Go to places. Someone sent me earlier that every day 8,000, I don't know if this figure is correct or not, but I'm just quoting, 8,000 children die daily because of hunger. Now, hunger is not a disease, right? 8,000. Yes, this pandemic that we're facing, close to that, thousands, are dying daily because of this pandemic. But just imagine 8,000, if that figure is anywhere close to being correct. Hunger is not a disease, yet people are struggling, or in the less fortunate areas. So, while this question is very relevant, that is it a punishment for us? We hope that this is a punishment. Because if Allah was to keep the punishment for our bad deeds in the hereafter, that'll be very, very bad. So hopefully this serves as the expiation, this serves as the kafara for our bad deeds and our evils, so that our record is clean when we are presented in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tomorrow. How do we respond to people who refuse to stop social gatherings because majalis, milad, and tabarruk are sources of shifa and should remain open at all times? I think if it wasn't for the government putting their foot down, many people would not have stopped. And I'm speaking outside of the religious. People whose livelihood is where they're, total shutdown of many of the businesses. Those who start their business, at nighttime, for example, they're forced to shut down. Now, I'm not comparing them, but they would have kept it open had this not have been mandated by the state. Similarly, you and I, this hall would have been packed. This hall would have been full of people had it not been, restricted by the government. Now, this restriction just came in only a few days ago. But we, at this center in this masjid, we took this action 3 weeks ago, right? Today is March 21st rather. We stopped all activities March 6th. So all of the activities have been stopped for 2 weeks now. So we took this action way in advance. And a lot of people were questioning, oh, look at them, they're not doing Jummah, they're not doing Majlis, they're not doing Jasht of Amir al-Mu'mineen, they're not doing this, they're not doing that. Eventually, everybody came to a halt. While Masumeen expect us to show gratitude towards them, you and I have been celebrating the wiladat of Amir al-Mu'mineen for many years. If, for example, this year we did not celebrate the wiladat of Amir al-Mu'mineen, do you think tomorrow, when we face Amir al-Mu'mineen, is he going to complain to us? How come you did not celebrate my wiladat in the year 2020 when there was this pandemic? No. Imam is not going to question us that way. Imam does not need jazbati mu'mineen. Imam needs those who have aql and shu'ur. Imam zamana, Imam of our time, does not need only those who are enthusiasts. He wants this enthusiasm along with rationale and with aql and with shu'ur. That if there's a clear danger to you, لا تلقوا بأيديكم إلى التهلكة. Don't throw yourself into halakat with your own hands. And that's the rationale and the logic behind it. So don't listen to someone who says, oh, there'll be more adab on you because you're not doing majlis. There'll be more adab on you because you're not celebrating the jashan. There'll be more adab. No. The time needs its own requisites, its own recommendations. And therefore, this would be in line with the commands of Masumeen alayhimus salatu wassalam. Is there any merit to any of these Islamic medicines, theories, suggestions being circulated in relation to disinfection and COVID-19 cure? The problem is, You know, a lot of time these things become a mockery. If this is true, these people who are forwarding these things, now there's an entire chapter called Tibbe Aimma, medicines of Ma'asumin. An entire chapter. We have tremendous, riwayat and books of ahadith filled with this. No doubt. We need someone to go ahead and take those, put those things together, and you can definitely find cure. Definitely. This Quran has cure for anything. But to go ahead and, give something a name that this is Islamic, it's actually making a mockery of it. Disservice to the religion. People will be laughing and making fun of it. A lot of time, forget about this COVID-19. Aside of this COVID-19, you get a lot of text messages, WhatsApp messages from people, mix this, mix that, use this, use that, and put this thing together and drink this syrup, and you will never have heart attack, for example. You will refrain from, diabetes, for example. How many people have tried that? These things are based on trials. So I think we should appreciate the medicine where they're actually taking trials, the health professionals who are putting trials to try the medicine which works. Now, there's this business aspect of it attached with it, which I'm not discussing. But those who are truly working to find a cure, you and I should do the same thing. Now, it's not my field, so anything that I would say would not really have any value in it. I'll leave it to those who are professionals in this field. But those who are forwarding these theories, these so-called Islamic medicines, let's put it to test. If those things actually do prove it to be correct, then sure, yeah, you can validate them. I'm not going to devalue all of them, but I can't really go ahead and validate them because this hasn't been proven yet. Not proven, you can't really go ahead and rely upon them. Is there any issue with using hand sanitizers? I think it reflects to if there's alcohol in it, because there was a certain limit of alcohol which is mentioned in hand sanitizer, 60%. Only then it will be effective. There's nothing wrong with it. I think we mentioned this a couple of weeks ago as well. One of the last Jummahs that we had, that alcohol, consuming it is haram. But alcohol itself is not najas. So you can put all the alcohol you want on your hands, in the form of hand sanitizers to, cure or purify yourself and, kill these germs. There's nothing wrong with it. You have any questions? Okay. And I'll take this last one that I have, and inshallah we'll conclude. If this crisis period is prolonged till Ramadan, and we have rationed food, supplies, and normal functions of daily life are impacted, how would that affect Ramadan fasting? We'll wait for the Maraji to give, fatwa in this reference, that if there isn't enough to eat, if there's not enough to consume, and you have to ration this, and you have to live by this, there are many places, many times where some of the obligations have been lifted, as it is Ramadan itself. Those who are unable to fast in normal circumstances, due to travel, due to illness, due to temporary this and that, then it's not obligatory upon them to fast. So we'll wait until, if God forbid this does prolong to that extent, what is the instruction of our maraji, because we're all muqalladeen at the end of the day in the ghaibat of imam of our time, but we make dua that inshallah with the luhur of our imam and with our imam being in parda ghaib, but imam is not oblivious of us struggling. So make sure that you utilize tonight, especially for this special bond connection with imam of your time, who's not heedless of you, who's not oblivious of you, who knows that you're struggling and going through difficult time, and keep this connection healthy and sound throughout your days and nights and lifetime, not just when you are struggling. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us the tawfiq and ability to follow commands and teachings of Masumin alayhi salatu wasalam. And inshallah, if there are any other questions, you can email and I'll be able to inshallah address them. وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين صلوا على محمد وآل محمد.